Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The Time World. Zhou Zhou, who was walking on the land of the heavenly barbarian empire more than 25,000 years ago in his incarnation, raised his eyebrows slightly and felt Su Yuan's gaze that transcended space. Forbidden Archmage, Su Yuan? Is this existence dead or alive? Zhou Zhou pondered. In the end, he decided to use the Bodhi Supreme to ask where this true god tier of the human race was. Speaking of which, it was magical. Through this job change statue, he could clearly sense that this forbidden archmage, His Excellency Su Yuan, should be a true god tier. However, there was no news of such an existence that could illuminate the heavens with the starlight of the divine kingdom in the history of the human race in the High Continent. The Yellow Emperor and the others did not even know who Su Yuan was. This was a little magical. Su Yuan should be a true god tier born from a human from a certain world in the myriad worlds. The light of the divine kingdom stars doesn't appear. Either the other party used some secret technique that can hide his nomological path and made the divine kingdom's stars hide, or the other party has died. Previously, Zhou Zhou had thought that the other party had died, which was why he had left behind this job change statue. It had even been sent to him by the Supreme Will. However, Zhou Zhou felt that his guess might be wrong now that he felt the gaze from the statue. The other party clearly still existed in this world. However, for some reason, he could not appear in this world. If we can bring back a true god tier of the human race, it should more or less help the human race and me in our current situation. Zhou Zhou did not hesitate and temporarily retreated from the time world. Then, he took out the Bodhi Supreme and asked about the whereabouts of the Forbidden Archmage, Su Yuan. Forbidden Archmage, Su Yuan? I need an ordinary explanation. Sure. Zhou Zhou did not hesitate. Ordinary answers were not precious at all. There was nothing to hesitate about. Okay, then let me see. So it's here. F***CK. Bodhi Supreme was about to show Zhou Zhou the illusory scene but stopped short as it was stunned by the content displayed on the illusory scene. They saw a young man having an indescribable bodily interaction with a goddess. The goddess's perception seemed to be very sharp, noticing them the moment they looked over and looked in Zhou Zhou's direction. Friends of yours? The goddess had a faint smile on her face. She was very open and generous. Don't look. Su Yuan was exasperated. He raised his hand and cast the true god tier spell, Silent Curtain of Destiny. It directly broke the illusory scene set up by Bodhi Supreme, preventing Zhou Zhou and the others from seeing anything. Zhou Zhou? Bodhi Supreme? Was that Su Yuan? Zhou Zhou hesitated for a moment, but still wanted to confirm it. It was him. Bodhi Supreme said weakly. What's wrong with you? Zhou Zhou asked. Sigh. I've been discovered by the Master God tier. I feel that my ability to peek at secrets has decreased. Zhou Zhou, am I no longer young? Bodhi Supreme was sad. Is that the goddess of magic? The goddess of magic, Mistra? Zhou Zhou was shocked. Su Yuan and the goddess of magic are together? Really? Well done. However, he had worried for nothing. He even thought that he was trapped deep in some predicament. He is indeed trapped deep. However, why are the two of them together? Especially now that the humans have been forced to retreat to the primordial world? Isn't he coming to take a look? Zhou Zhou did not say anything. Letting the other party return to guard the human race was moral kidnapping. But was it that inconvenient to return to take a look? One of them created her law of magic, while the other employed the law of forbidden spells of the law of magic to achieve the position of true god tier. The two of them are equivalent to like-minded friends. It's normal for them to be together. As for your question, I can also help you answer it. Bodhi Supreme said, according to what I know, he submitted to the goddess of magic in order for her to open up the full authority of the magic network to the human race back then, so that the human race could have a chance to advance to the master god tier through the nomological path of magic. The goddess of magic signed an agreement with the Forbidden Archmage. Only when the Forbidden Archmage breaks through to the master god tier level will she let him return to the human race. Well, Actually, it's not really a sacrifice, because the two of them are in love to begin with. This is just the reason why the goddess of magic asked the forbidden archmage not to stay in the human race for too long. There's such an agreement between the goddess of magic and the forbidden archmage. The magic network actually wasn't fully open to humans before they inked the agreement. Yes, the Bodhi Supreme said. Before this agreement, the magic network was only open up to the legendary tier for humans. In other words, no matter how high the potential of the human mages at that time was, they could only cultivate to legendary tier advanced grade through the path of magic. It's impossible to become a god spirit, let alone a true god tier or a master god tier. That's why there were so many legends of mages defeating god spirits in the legendary tier of the human race. It looks like they were showing off his achievements, but they were actually forced to do so. Who would be willing to fight above their level? Zhou Zhou frowned. Why did that happen? According to my bloodline inheritance, the goddess of magic is also a god spirit who cultivates both the path of laws and the path of faith. Therefore, she is very generous with the authority of the magic network. 99% of the races in the myriad worlds can cultivate to the true god tier level through the magic network. However, when they advance to the master god tier level, they need to join the goddess of magic's camp. More and more life forms are cultivating the magic network. It's beneficial to the goddess of magic. Why doesn't the human race have full authority? He thought for a moment and frowned. Are the chaos gods race obstructing us? You're thinking too much. Why would the chaos gods race only target you humans? The difference between the current humans and the chaos humans of the past is huge. You should understand this as a chaos human. Before you, the chaos gods race might not even understand about the human race. The Bodhi Supreme said, in short, the matter you're asking involves the highest level of secrets. If you want to know, you need to give me something more. Zhou Zhou's frown deepened. The highest level of secrets. Was it a secret at the level of the supreme will? It was also because of this that the goddess of magic prevented Su Yuan from returning to the human race before he became a master god tier? He took a deep breath and shook his head with a smile. Forget it. It's useless for me to understand such a secret. It's a waste of my time. It won't be too late to find out when I reach that level in the future. Wise choice. The Bodhi Supreme praised. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he thought of something and was suddenly shocked. Just now, I observed that Su Yuan's strength appeared to have already attained the true god tier advanced grade. Yes, stated Bodhi Supreme with a smile. It's already on the same level as Imperial Lord Pangu of your human race. Su Yuan's potential is at least a Master God tier advanced grade. Zhou Zhou said. Master God tier's advanced grade is slightly low, Bodhi Supreme said. The goddess of magic is proud and arrogant. Countless Master God tiers have courted her. Even Master God tier Terrence has done something similar, but the goddess of magic has mercilessly rejected him. Since Su Yuan was favored by the goddess of magic, other than the two of them being like-minded, the goddess of magic probably believes that he has the potential of reaching the supreme god realm in the future. Zhou Zhou nodded silently. It seemed that he could only wait for the other party to become a master god tier in the future before they could meet again. Following that, he took one last look at the soldiers who were still in front of the job change statue and undergoing the job change transformation before he turned around and entered the time world again to study the Lord's Law with Zhou. This was one of the advantages of a clone. He could even comprehend laws at the same time, obtaining double the efficiency and double the benefits. Time passed quickly. One night had passed in the blink of an eye. In the time world, Zhou Zhou woke up from the reincarnation sacred palace. He recalled the progress from last night and couldn't help but smile. With the addition of my clone, the comprehension effect has actually doubled. I feel like I'm one step closer to the low-tier deity level advanced grade. This talent, doppelganger technique, is simply a divine skill for me. Zhou Zhou was elated. He thought for a moment and decided to split out a second clone. He had the ability to create a second clone without any future troubles now that his main body's origin power had completely recovered. With every additional clone, His efficiency in comprehending the Lord's laws would double. He could even help him do things. Zhou Zhou naturally would not delay such a good thing. Without any hesitation, he immediately activated his talent, doppelganger technique. The next second, he felt the origin power in his body rapidly flow out of his heart. Then, it gathered in her hand, forming a ball of 9-colored origin power. Zhou Zhou looked at this familiar scene. The ball of origin energy in his hand gradually condensed into a palm-sized Zhou Zhou. He jumped out of Zhou Zhou's hand. As he jumped down, he rapidly grew in size. By the time he landed on the ground, he had already become the same size as Zhou Zhou. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Zhou 1 already exists, so your name is Zhou 2. Zhou Zhou asked. All right, main body. Zhou 2 agreed. What do I have to do? Zhou Zhou fell into deep thought. Since Zhou 1 wants to fight, you'll be in charge. From today onwards, you will take over Prime Minister Zheng's main government affairs and be in charge of daily government affairs. It's not good to always get Prime Minister Zheng and the others to help. Now that the Blazing Sun Kingdom is getting bigger and bigger, you should act like an emperor. You can't just leave everything to others. No problem. Zhou Tu said without hesitation. We've used a skill book called the Emperor's Heart Technique. There are also many inherited memories of bloodlines. It records the inherited memories of countless lords and even lords of races. Dealing with government affairs can't be any simpler for us. I will do better than Zheng Yuanqi and the rest. That's for the best. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Naturally, he would believe Zhou Tu. Zhou Tu was right after all. Compared to Zheng Yuanqi, who used his experience to handle government affairs, Zhou Tu, who had the Emperor's Heart Technique and the inheritance of countless races, would definitely do better than Zheng Yuanqi. I have an idea, Zhou Tu suddenly said. What idea? Zhou Zhou was stunned. Zhou 1 and Zhou 2 sound bad and are difficult to distinguish. Why don't we call ourselves Zhou Fight and Zhou Manage? Zhou 2 said expectantly. That works too. Zhou Zhou nodded nonchalantly, not minding such a small matter. As for Zhou Manage's idea of changing his name, that was too normal. It was a master god-tier talent after all. It would be strange if he couldn't even make his request. Zhou Manage nodded and left the Divine Kingdom to look for Zheng Yuanqi. Zhou Zhou watched Zhou Manage leave with a faint smile on his face. With Zhou Manage helping him nurture the experience of an emperor, his main body would not have to work hard to enjoy the results in the future. Then, he sent a portion of his will into Zhou 1's avatar. No, it should be Zhou Fight's avatar. Then, he brought him to Mu Gu. After learning from Mu Gu that Bai Yun was leading troops to clear out the monsters in the ranch world, he waited with Mu Gu. A moment later, Bai Yun flew out of the ranch world. Greetings, Your Majesty. When Bai Yun saw Zhou Zhou, she immediately said respectfully. Then, he handed a spatial ring to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou took it and looked at the items in the ring. They were 13.5 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Recruitment Books, 13.5 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier Class Change Certificates, 3.75 trillion Violent Storm Spirit Recruitment Books, and 3.75 trillion Violent Storm Spirit Class Change Certificates. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. He did not immediately go to the Gate of Summoning. Instead, he first handed all the Class Change Certificates to Bai Yun. Bai Yun. Give these class change certificates to the new recruits in the country who have not joined the army. Let them immediately change their professions and become usable combat power. Then, get them to enlist our army and become official soldiers. A smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. Yesterday, we had already settled all the class change certificates we owed for buying the human territory. Now, we have a large number of human subjects in our hands. Previously, we never used our class change certificate on ourselves because we didn't have enough subjects. Most of the previous class change certificates were also sold to others. Not anymore. Starting today, we'll use our class change certificate ourselves. If there aren't enough human subjects to change occupations, then let the fire cry human race do it. A few 100 trillion members of the Fire Cry human race can always consume our class change certificate. Yes, Your Majesty. Baiyun immediately said respectfully and excitedly. If they could really use all the class change certificates, their military strength would double. Zhou Zhou nodded and took the remaining recruitment books to the Gate of Summoning. He cast all the recruitment books inside and used 100 epic tier mist cores to summon all the recruits at once. The 17,250,000,000 new recruits directly appeared on the 20 galaxy that he had called over, almost filling up the internal world of the galaxy. Zhou Zhou gazed at the new recruits on the galaxy and acknowledged in satisfaction. He already had 74,567,897,04 soldiers under him. Now, with the addition of these 17,250,000,000 new recruits, the number of soldiers under he has reached an astonishing 91,817,800,000 soldiers. If Baiyun used the class change certificate to create 17.25 billion new recruits, the number of new recruits under him would directly surpass 100 billion, reaching an astonishing 109,067,809,704. In addition to the 13.782 billion soldiers of the Star Alliance, he had more than 120 billion soldiers. Over 120 billion soldiers. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself, even though this number can't compare to Uriel's 500 billion soldiers, my soldier types will all be empire level, while theirs will be mixed. In terms of true combat strength, my soldiers might not necessarily be weaker than them. It's just that the difference in God spirits is too great. Zhou Zhou fluttered his head. If not for the huge difference in God spirits, he even wanted to lead his troops to counterattack Uriel and the people of foreign races immediately. As for now, it was better to lay low and develop for a period of time. But at least there's hope of a confrontation, Zhou Zhou muttered. Zhou Zhou asked Wenya to control these 20 galaxy ships to carry more than 17 billion new recruits to the army base after he summoned the new recruits. And he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he stood in front of the Gate of Summoning and summoned the new subject for today. He roughly checked the attribute information of these 44,000 new subjects after all the new subjects were summoned. In the end, he regretfully discovered that there were no unique extraordinary tier professionals among these new subjects that attracted him. However, Zhou Zhou was not disappointed. Special subjects like the extraordinary tier professionals were naturally the best. It did not matter if they did not. Then, he went straight to the Lord's shop. When he arrived at the Lord's shop, he realized that Zhou Qingmin was indeed sitting in front of the counter, looking like he had been waiting for a long time. Your Majesty is here. Zhou Qingmin stood up and chuckled. There is something good in the Lord's shop this time. Zhou Zhou was stunned. This guy actually said that there was something good? This was the first time. Could it really be something good? Take it out and take a look. Zhou Zhou said expectantly. Zhou Qingmin smiled and took out 3 gift boxes from under the counter. He opened the 3 boxes one by one. Then, Zhou Zhou was surprised to discover that there were 3 talent crystals inside. Zhou Zhou looked at them one by one. Talent, Shepherd's God Race. Talent effect, the Shepherd's God Race's strongest intrinsic talent. The Shepherd's God Race is born with a Divine Court Realm apertures. Every Divine Court Realm aperture will nurture a Divine Court spirit. The Shepherd's God Race with higher potential would naturally have more Divine Court Realm apertures. On the other hand, the number would decrease, but it would not be less than 49 Divine Court Realm apertures. Before the Shepherd's God Race advanced to the God Spirit Realm, the Divine Court Realm apertures could help the Shepherd's God Race speed up the recovery of the energy in their bodies. Furthermore, before the Shepherd's God Race became God Spirits, they could use the Divine Court Spirit in the Divine Court Realm apertures to accommodate and use the power of laws in advance, allowing the Shepherd's God Race to use the power of laws before they became God Spirits. After becoming a God Spirit, the Divine Court Realm apertures would evolve into a small divine world. The spirit of the Divine Court Realm would be promoted to a small God Spirit. The small God Spirit would help the Shepherd's God Race rule the small divine world and respect the Shepherd's God Race as their leader. This would provide faith and divine power to the shepherd's god race. Talent, divine body of laws. Talent effect. The shepherd's god race's physique can be compatible with all nomological powers. Even the opposite nomological powers can be compatible or even fused. Furthermore, when casting nomological attacks, the shepherd's god race will not be harmed by any form of nomological backlash. Talent, boundless divine power. Talent effect. The total amount of divine power of the shepherd's god race is determined by the number of divine court realm apertures he has. The divine power that each divine court realm aperture could contain was equivalent to all the physical magic power of the shepherd's god race after they threw away the divine court realm apertures. The shepherd's god race, who had 3,000 divine court realm apertures, would have an endless and inexhaustible divine power source like the Sea of Origin. They're all top-grade talents of the Mu God clan. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up when he saw the three items. The shepherd's god race. The strongest talent of the shepherd's god race. With this talent, the shepherd's god race was equivalent to having 3,000 small worlds. Although these 3,000 small worlds combined were not as big as one of the original spirit race's intrinsic worlds, it had all the functions that ordinary worlds should have. The divine body of laws was an extremely powerful combat talent. In the future, no matter how much he used law skills, he wouldn't have to worry about his divine body getting injured. As for the last talent, boundless divine power, it was even more astonishing. According to its description, the divine power stored in every small divine world of the Mu God race was equivalent to all the divine power possessed by the main body. For example, Yuan Song had 1,580 divine court realm apertures in its body. If the Yuan Song needed to release an attack that required all its divine power, then he could release such an attack as many as 1,580 times in a row. What a shocking reserve of divine power! Coupled with the divine body of laws, which could withstand torture, the two were a perfect match. If the Chaos God's race is said to be an invincible close combat god of war with an invincible body, then the Shepherd's God race is equivalent to a super archmage with a law skill and a machine gun. Zhou Zhou concluded. As for the original spirit race, they were born with worlds and were born as world gods. They were slightly inferior to the Chaos God's race in terms of physique and overall divine power, but they were not much inferior to the Shepherd's God race. Furthermore, their comprehension of laws was currently number one among the myriad races. It was said that the number of gods in their race was the sum of the Chaos God's race and Shepherd's God race combined. They were the first race born between heaven and earth. They were the natural favorites of the Supreme Will, and they were a race at the level of the children of the Virgin. In terms of luck, the two god races combined could not compare to the original spirit race. It was said that there was another reason why the original spirit race could suppress the Chaos God's race and Shepherd's God race. However, Zhou Zhou did not know the specifics. Zhou Zhou did not care much about such matters. In any case, he also had the bloodline of the original spirit race in him. As for the chaotic human tribe that had been destroyed, be it in terms of divine body, divine power, or comprehension, they were inferior to these three races. However, due to the special bloodline of the Chaos humans, their growth potential was number one among all races. As long as the Chaos humans were given enough time to fuse with enough bloodlines, they would be able to catch up to or even surpass the three top bloodline races. Just like the current Zhou Zhou, I've already absorbed the bloodlines of the original spirit race and the Chaos God's race. Coupled with the addition of other fragmented bloodlines, my comprehension and the strength of my divine body have already far exceeded the original spirit race and the Chaos God's race at the same level. In addition to the Shepherd's God race's divine power enhancement, my total divine power shall also far exceed the Shepherd's God race at the same level. These three top-notch bloodline abilities are all augmented on me alone, even if my Chaos human bloodline is only at the high-tier deity level elementary grade. It would be enough to be called the strongest bloodline in the infinite worlds. At the considered of this, Zhou Zhou stopped hesitating and immediately questioned Zhou Qingmin how many mist cores these trio products cost. Talent, Shepherd's God Race, worth 10,000 legendary tier mist core. Talent, Nomological Divine Body, worth 1,000 legendary tier mist cores. Talent, Boundless Divine Power, worth 3,000 legendary tier mist core. Zhou Qingmin smiled. Zhou Zhou took out 18,000 legendary tier mist cores and handed them to the other party without any hesitation. Then, he took the trio items from the alternate party and returned to the cultivation room in the Divine Kingdom world. A mysterious smile appeared on Zhou Qingmin's face as he watched Zhou Zhou leave. The reason why I stated it's good is not only because the goods this moment are the Shepherd's God Race's bloodline talent. After he finished speaking, he leisurely turned around and returned to his esports chair. Then, he put on the virtual gaming helmet and entered the game world. In the Divine Kingdom world, Cultivation Hall, Zhou Zhou used the 3 talent crystals one by one. Soon, he felt waves of heat and pain coming from various places in his body other than his heart. He could sense that his divine body was being modified by his talent, transforming into a nomological divine body and giving birth to divine court realm apertures. While enduring the pain, Zhou Zhou was also a little curious about how many divine court realm apertures he could produce. According to the talent information, the more talented the Shepherd's God Race, the more divine court realm apertures there would be. The Yuan Song had 1,580 divine court realm apertures. It could already be said to be an extremely talented member of the Shepherd's God Race. It was said that if he could reach the limit of the Shepherd's God Race's talent, 3,000 divine court realm apertures, it even had the potential to advance to the Supreme God realm. Zhou Zhou knew that currently, the strongest lord of the Shepherd's God Race, the heaven-chasing lord, this old opponent of his, had 3,000 divine court realm apertures. According to Yuan Song's understanding, other than 3,000 divine court realm apertures, the other party had also awakened the strongest lord talent that was most suitable for these 3,000 divine court realm apertures. Mythical tier, the only lord talent, 3,000 divine kings. The combination of the two made the other party the existence with the highest chance of becoming a supreme god realm expert in the Shepherd's God Race. Therefore, the heaven-chasing lord's status was the same as the true lord of the original spirit race. They were both respected as the supreme holy sons of the race. Even the true god tier had to be extremely polite to this heaven-chasing lord. They even had to deliberately flatter him. I should be able to awaken 3,000 divine court realm apertures. Zhou Zhou already had a premonition about the outcome of this matter. Time passed slowly. In this period of time, Bai Yun had already given all the class change certificates that Zhou Zhou had given in the morning to the new recruits who had not joined the army. She wanted them to successfully change their professions to extraordinary tier professionals, and all the violent storm spirit recruits to forbidden mages. Finally, she wanted them all to join the Blazing Sun army. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's soldiers had officially reached more than 120 billion soldiers. Then, he went to look for Zhou Zhou to ask for instructions on what to do next. Zhou Zhou was currently undergoing the Shepherd's God Race's innate talent modification, so he naturally could not come out to meet Bai Yun. However, he had already arranged for a portion of his will to enter Zhou Fight's body. Therefore, after hearing the news of Bai Yun's arrival, he walked out of the Divine Kingdom world to meet Bai Yun. Zhou Zhou's will spoke for Zhou Fight faced with Bai Yun's question. It will still be yesterday's order of action. I'll kill 30 targets of the Eye of the Heaven's anger first, then destroy a race that doesn't accept the letter of surrender. Yes, Your Majesty, Bai Yun said respectfully. They did not waste any time. They took all the soldiers and piloted 200 Galaxy towards the nearest target of the Eye of the Heaven's anger. At the same time, Zhou Zhou's second clone, Zhou Manage, had successfully taken over Zhang Yuanqi's work. Faced with Zhou Manage's request, Zhang Yuanqi's first reaction was a little stunned. This was because he did not expect His Majesty to suddenly take back the job he was in charge of. However, he immediately smiled in relief. His Majesty could be said to be peerless in conquering the people of foreign races. Many lords of the people of foreign races could not compare to His Majesty at all. He forcefully created the title and glory of the number one lord of the 10,000 races in the world. Now, His Majesty has to start training his ability to deal with government affairs. His Majesty is really becoming more and more like the perfect king of our subjects. Zhang Yuanqi felt emotional and happy. Then, he didn't waste any time. He immediately rushed the ministers who helped deal with the government affairs of the territory. He summarized the work that should have belonged to the Lord and returned them to Zhou manage one by one. During this process, whether it was Zhang Yuanqi or the other ministers, they did not have any unwillingness to lose their power on their faces or hearts. As the higher-ups of the territory, almost all of them were Zhou Zhou's fanatic believers. With their loyalty and faith in Zhou Zhou, they naturally wouldn't have such disloyal psychological reactions. After handing all the administrative documents that belonged to the Lord to Zhou manage, all the ministers, including Zhang Yuanqi, heaved a sigh of relief. Frankly speaking, as the Blazing Sun Kingdom's territory grew larger and larger, it now had the territories of two races. Under such circumstances, the number of government affairs that Zhang Yuanqi and the others dealt with every day had already reached an extremely terrifying number, and this number was still increasing. Even if they kept expanding the number of officials at all levels, they could not deal with the rapidly increasing number of government affairs. Among these government affairs, at least a quarter of them belonged to lords. Now that His Majesty was willing to take over this part of the government affairs, the burden on their shoulders would be much easier. However, they also knew that this was His Majesty's first time officially handling these government affairs, and they were extremely huge and complicated. He would definitely not be proficient in handling them for the first time, and there was a high chance that he would make a mistake. Therefore, they were already prepared to assist His Majesty in handling government affairs at any time. Even though doing so might make His Majesty feel uncomfortable, for the sake of the territory and for His Majesty's growth, this was something they felt that they had to do. However, when Zhou manage sat down and picked up the administrative documents to deal with the administrative matters one by one, the expression on their faces changed from relief to apprehension, then gradually to surprise. In the end, they widened their mouths in shock. This was because when His Majesty was handling government affairs, he was indeed a little unskilled at the beginning. He looked completely like a newbie handling government affairs, and he even had a curious expression on his face. However, as time passed, Zhou Manag's speed of handling government affairs became faster and faster. In less than half an hour, he had already handled more than 1,000 government documents, and his efficiency was yet increasing. Zhang Yuanqi and the rest were dumbfounded. They looked at each other in a daze. Even if His Majesty was a god spirit, the efficiency of analyzing the content was much higher than them, so it shouldn't be so fast, right? Dealing with government affairs mainly relied on experience, not analytical ability after all. They suddenly thought of something. Could His Majesty be just making up a story? They hurriedly picked up the documents that Zhou Manage had just dealt with and opened them one by one. When they first read the instructions written by Zhou Manage, they immediately widened their eyes. As they read deeper, their eyes grew bigger and bigger. In the end, their eyes even lit up, and they became obsessed. Can the conflict between the people of foreign races be dealt with like this? There's actually such a loophole in the promotion of officials. I actually didn't notice it before. So the intention of giving in to the people here is actually so deep. The wise and far-sighted thoughts of a king. This is the sage's plan. No, I have to record it down. This people of foreign race dispute was handled too well. Zhang Yuanqi and the other officials went crazy. They held the administrative documents that Zhou Manage had handled as if they were holding the holy record in their hearts. They only woke up after knowing that Zhou Manage's voice had repeated in their ears several times. What are you doing? Zhou Manage looked at them. Distribute these administrative documents and execute them. Aye. They reacted and hurriedly said. Then, he left with these administrative documents as if he was holding a treasure. Zhou Manage smiled and shook his head. Then, he continued to deal with the mountain of government affairs. In Zhang Yuanqi's eyes, these government affairs needed a day to be dealt with. But to Zhou Manage, 2 hours was about it. After he familiarized him with the emperor's legacy in his mind, half an hour was enough. A moment later, he saw an administrative document personally written by Zheng Yuanqi and raised his eyebrows slightly. He opened it and took a look. The document reads as follows. Your Majesty, up until now, a total of 15,366 races have sent envoys to our blazing Sun Kingdom. Among them, there had been 104 envoys from the people of foreign races. They were the people of foreign races who had stopped the humans from retreating to the primordial world some time ago. Then, they were beaten back by us and sent a letter of surrender. They have already accepted the letter of surrender and are willing to turn into our subsidiary race. As for the remaining 15,262 envoys of the people of foreign races, they heard of our reputation and want to form an alliance with us. We have already checked the racial information of 1,672 people of foreign races and confirmed that 519 of them are worth to ally with. Are we going to formalize an alliance with them? Zhou Manage fell into deep thought. Zhou Zhou didn't hesitate for too long and directly printed the approval seal on this administrative document. After printing it, Zhou Zhou looked at the document and muttered to himself. With the Lord talent of the peaceful times, these people of foreign races who surrendered to me basically won't have any disloyalty. As for those people of foreign races seeking an alliance, as long as I maintain my peak strength and become stronger, I will let these people of foreign races see the benefits of following me. This alliance will be the most stable alliance. Even if the strength of my territory has decreased greatly, I'm already an enemy of the entire world. It doesn't matter if I have more enemies. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. As for these alliances and the surrendered people of foreign races, they were naturally beneficial to his lord's forces. Mutual help was the most basic requirement. Of course, if they felt that the enemy the other party had provoked was not someone they could deal with together, not only would they not be able to help, but they would also easily suffer. Then, there would be no need to force the alliance. It was the instinct of all living beings to seek benefits and avoid harm. Not to mention these people of foreign races. Even if Zhou Zhou knew that an alliance of people of foreign races had provoked more than 10 Divine Kingdom Lord factions because they were arrogant and conceited because of their alliance relationship and wanted to rely on their alliance relationship to seek refuge, he would not have cared about their request for help. There are more than 15,000 people of foreign races. Even if each person of foreign races sends 1 billion soldiers to assist my army in battle, we can still gather a total of 15 billion soldiers. Zhou Zhou thought. However, that was not how the military strength was calculated. First of all, they were allies, not subordinates. They could help each other. However, if he wanted the people of foreign races in the alliance to send troops to help him in the process of conquering other people of foreign races, that would be another matter. If they sent troops to help you, it would be a favor that you would have to repay in the future. If the other party did not send troops out to watch coldly, Zhou Zhou would not be able to say anything. Secondly, any race would more or less have enemies from other people of foreign races due to various reasons such as territorial conflicts. For example, the enemies of the people of foreign races that the humans encountered when they retreated to the primordial world were all hostile races of the humans. This was the case for humans. It was the same for the 15,000 people of foreign races. They might even be in greater trouble than the humans. If he dared to mobilize more than 15,000 people of foreign races to help him conquer the territory, there would probably be more than 15,000 people of foreign races, or even more people of foreign races on the second day. There was a reason for them to join forces to attack him. That was a perfect example. Zhou Zhou did not have the ability to make so many enemies for the time being, so he would definitely not do such a stupid thing. Even though these people of foreign races are very powerful, they can't be used easily. Otherwise, we might have obtained some unimaginable victories at the beginning. But then there's endless trouble. If I want to use it, I have to carefully screen the origins of the people of foreign races to prevent myself from getting into trouble. I can only use the power of all the people of foreign races when I'm in a desperate situation. After all, there shouldn't be anything to worry about then. Zhou Zhou thought. As for the 104 people of foreign races who accepted the letter of surrender, they did not have so many scruples. Zhang Yuanqi directly ordered the other party to send 1 billion soldiers from the people of foreign races to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and join the army of 10,000 races to serve the Blazing Sun Kingdom in Zhou Zhou. 1 billion soldiers from the people of foreign races and 104 people of foreign races added up to a total of 104 billion soldiers. When these people of foreign races arrived at the capital, the total number of soldiers under Zhou Zhou would exceed 200 billion. It doubled. In addition, the number of foreign races soldiers that Zhang Yuanqi had set up was also very small. This number could not only replenish the troops of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, it could also not affect the people of foreign races who possessed already lost a lot of troops, allowing them to leave behind enough soldiers to guard the territory of their race. Apart from the soldiers, these surrendered people of foreign races would also send large amounts of mist cores, materials, medicinal herbs, secret manuals, skill books, equipment, and other resources to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. These resources were naturally what the defeated party and the surrendered party should do. Most importantly, these 104 people of foreign races would send 10 deities from low-tier deity level elementary grade to high-tier deity level advanced grade to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom. A total of 1,040 god spirits from the 104 people of foreign races. They would arrive together with the soldiers no later than the night after tomorrow. The total number of god spirits under Zhou Zhou would reach at least 2,000 when they arrived. Zhou managed nodded in satisfaction. Subduing a race-level faction, not just one or two, but hundreds of race-level factions, was just so satisfying. 1,040 god spirits. If he relied on himself to nurture 1,000 god spirits, who knew how long it would take for him to do so? Now, it was easily achieved through war. War is indeed the best way to increase one's strength and influence. Zhou managed sighed. Then, he continued to handle the next administrative matter. In the Divine Kingdom world, Cultivation Hall, Zhou Zhou opened his eyes. With a thought, the Emperor Dragon robe on, he gradually disappeared, and his perfect divine body that was like a god appeared. He gazed at his divine body and possessed a thought. White vortexes that emitted holy light appeared on the surface of his body and moved at a constant speed. From afar, it looked like a large number of galaxies had appeared on Zhou Zhou's body. If one looked closely, they would discover that an entire world was revealed in these vortexes. Furthermore, at the source of the world, there was an existence that looked very much like Zhou Zhou's small god spirit. If an entire world was vaguely visible in each vortex, then there were a total of 3,000 such vortexes on Zhou Zhou's body. 3,000 divine court realm apertures. Just as I expected. However, my 3,000 divine court realm apertures seemed to be different from the ones Yuan Tsung mentioned. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. Then, he touched his heart as a strange expression appeared on his face. In his perception, the world that possessed awakened from the original spirit race in his heart was ingeniously connected to the world of the 3,000 divine court realm apertures that had awakened from the shepherd gods in a way that he couldn't understand. After connecting, be it the world in the divine court realm apertures or the world in the heart, they began to grow in a perfect direction, as if they wanted to raise the world awakened by the original spirit race's bloodline and the world in the divine court realm apertures to the level of a perfect world. Moreover, they were not the only ones who possessed developed to the level of a perfect world. Under their influence, he sensed that his already incomparably powerful divine body of chaos was also beginning to become stronger. Zhou Zhou possessed a feeling. When his 3,000 divine court realm apertures world, the world in his heart, and the chaotic divine body grew to a perfect level and filled in an extremely important bloodline, they would undergo an extremely shocking qualitative change. The bloodlines of the original spirit race, shepherd's god race, chaos god's race, and chaos human race can actually produce such a miraculous change when they are gathered together. But what do I think the missing bloodline is? Bloodline of the myriad spirit race? Titan race bloodline? Creation elf bloodline? Or some other top-notch bloodline? Zhou Zhou pondered carefully. What he was thinking of was considered a top-notch bloodline. However, After thinking for a while, he still couldn't determine which was which, so in the end, he decided to ask Bodhi Supreme. This concerned his future after all. He had to take it seriously. Then, he took out the Bodhi Supreme and asked it this question. Then, Bodhi Supreme gave he an answer that he had never thought of. No, it was not really an answer. I don't know, Bodhi Supreme said solemnly. Its tone was no longer as lazy as before. You don't know? Zhou Zhou was stunned. Didn't this guy claim to be omniscient? I really don't know about this. Bodhi Supreme also saw Zhou Zhou's expression and said helplessly, even though I claim to be omniscient, that's because my knowledge comes from the Supreme Will. I basically know 99% of what the Supreme Will knows. Because with the Supreme Will's omniscient and omnipotent power, I naturally dare to boldly say that I know everything. But if there's something that even the Supreme Will doesn't know, I naturally won't be able to answer you. TSK, Zhou Zhou. In the endless heavens, there are very few things that even the Supreme Will doesn't know. What you encountered is also magical. Zhou Zhou. What could he say? Looks like I can only rely on myself. He thought helplessly. Then, he sensed the level of his bloodline. He realized that his chaotic human race bloodline had already jumped from a high-tier deity-level elementary-grade bloodline to a high-tier deity-level advanced-grade bloodline. He was only a step away from advancing to a true god-tier bloodline. According to the records of my chaos human bloodline, the true god-tier chaos human bloodline will be a bottleneck for any chaos human. I'm no exception. I'm afraid I won't be able to advance to the true god-tier elementary-grade chaos human bloodline in a short period of time. There should be 3 standard ways to break through the bottleneck and advance to the true god-tier elementary-grade chaos human bloodline. The first method is to devour a large number of bloodlines and rely on the quantitative advantage to achieve a qualitative change. You can forcefully break through the bottleneck and advance to the true god-tier elementary-grade chaos human bloodline. The second method is to devour a large number of chaos beasts, which is the chaos god's race, to advance to the true god-tier elementary grade of the chaos human race. The flesh of chaos beasts is a great tonic for the chaos humans. That's what the chaos humans did in the chaos era. The third method is to find the missing part of my bloodline that I sense. As long as I find that mysterious bloodline and let my inner world advance to the perfect world realm, my bloodline can advance to the true god-tier elementary grade. For now, I don't want to fall out with the Chaos Gods race right now. Moreover, even if I were to eat all those newbies from the Chaos Gods race, it probably wouldn't be enough for me to advance to the true god-tier elementary grade of the Chaos human race. If we go to the Chaos Gods race's base camp to look for those Chaos Gods race beings, that would be courting death. As one of the top 3 bloodlines in the endless heavens, the Chaos Gods race's base camp would definitely have several chief gods overseeing it. Furthermore, they would also have extremely rare Supreme God Realm trump cards on them. I won't be able to find it. I don't have any clue about that missing bloodline either. From the looks of it, I think I only have the first path to take. Collecting a large number of bloodlines to achieve a qualitative change in quantity? It's not impossible. Zhou Zhou was deep in thought. In any case, he was engaged in racial-level wars every day. Furthermore, his territory was constantly expanding. Every day, a large number of bloodlines allowed him to devour and evolve. Sooner or later, his energy would undergo a qualitative change, allowing his bloodline to advance to the true god-tier elementary grade chaos human bloodline. It might be slow, but it was steady. Zhou Zhou loved stability. Let's do it. Zhou Zhou made up his mind. At this moment, he suddenly sensed something and looked into the distance. His gaze seemed to pass through the Divine Kingdom world and see the vast starry sky outside the Divine Kingdom. At an unknown distance from his Divine Kingdom star, a huge Divine Kingdom star with a diameter of about 1,000,000 light-years slowly appeared. It emitted scorching golden flames and was like a smaller sun. When this Divine Kingdom star first appeared, it was still transparent. However, not long after, it began to quickly solidify, turning into a real star that stood in the starry sky. Its golden flames illuminated the myriad worlds and began to spread the inheritance of its master. Another true god-tier god spirit has been born, Zhou Zhou said softly when he saw this. Then, he revealed a smile. This was likely to be from the aura emitted by this divine kingdom star, which should be the divine kingdom star after Heros became a true god tier. His divine body instantly vanished on the spot. The next second, he appeared in the sky above the blazing sun kingdom. He looked up. At this moment, the sky above the blazing sun kingdom had already turned into a golden fire cloud formed by golden flames, emitting a domineering and blazing power of the laws of fire. He looked at Heros' residence. He realized that Heros had not come out yet. It seemed that he was still in the process of breaking through. Zhou Zhou was not in a hurry. He simply sat on a cloud and casually set up the 9 worlds divine demon dreamfall array. Then, he quietly waited for the enemy to arrive. During this process, Patriarch Lu and Bai He also came over. They looked at the true god-tier phenomenon in the sky and then looked at Zhou Zhou with a complicated expression. Another true deity level has been born here, Patriarch Lu said. He said the word again in a very complicated tone. Bai He's expression was the same. No matter how they thought about it, they could not understand why a true deity level that only appeared once every 10,000 years in the outside world could emerge so easily in this person's territory. Furthermore, they were born one after another. Humanity had spent countless resources and countless years to give birth to true god tiers like Patriarch Lu and Bai He. But what about this person? They could not figure it out. Thankfully, Zhou Zhou was on their side. Otherwise, they would probably not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Zhou Zhou smiled. If the two of you come to my territory in the future and are really worshipped God, you'll know. He said casually. Bai He and Patriarch Lu began to ponder seriously. However, after thinking for a long time, they eventually sighed. We're not Gerald. We can't bypass the Supreme Agreement and join your territory, Bai He said. Patriarch Lu nodded as well. Zhou Zhou nodded. That was why he had never mentioned such matters in front of the two of them. In the time that followed, Zhou Zhou and the other two were protecting Heros. In the end, they waited for a long time. When the golden flames in the sky were about to dissipate and Heros was about to complete his advancement process, they did not see an enemy coming. There are actually no hostile god spirits coming to stop us? Bai He was stunned. It's hard to imagine. Patriarch Lu also shook his head. Then, he smiled and made a guess. Could it be that he knows that it's useless even if he comes, so he simply doesn't see and doesn't feel annoyed? Possibly. Bai He nodded. At this moment, a figure that looked like a blazing sun flew towards them at high speed. It was Heros, who had already become a true deity-level god spirit. True god tier blazing sun greets your majesty. Heros knelt respectfully in the void and looked at Zhou Zhou gratefully. He had been stuck at the high-tier deity-level elementary grade for tens of thousands of years and hadn't even reached the high-tier deity-level intermediate grade. Didn't he join the Elven Empire and become the Elven Empire's worshipped god spirit because he wanted to use the Elven Empire's resources to advance to a higher level? At that time, he didn't even dare to think about becoming a true god tier. He only wanted to become a high-tier deity-level advanced grade, or even a high-tier deity-level intermediate grade. In the end, after staying for a long time, not only did he not obtain any advancement, he even put himself in danger several times because he was fighting for the Elven Empire and almost died. From then on, he had given up. He had been doing badly in the Elven Empire every day. Even if the Elven Empire reduced his resources as a worshipped god spirit, he did not care anymore. Until His Majesty arrived, not only did His Majesty allow him to quickly advance to the high-tier deity-level advanced grade, but he also generously rewarded him with a Master God-level book of the God Spirit when he faced the bottleneck of the true God tier. Not only would he be able to advance to the true God tier, but he would also have a chance to become a Master God tier. Such a great favor was like being reborn. How could Heros not be grateful to Zhou Zhou? Bai He and Patriarch Lu looked at Heros' expression, then looked at each other and couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. Was this the charm of the common people's regal? Even a true god tier would be willing to follow this speaker of the human race so loyally if he had the supreme power to destroy and create a world. At the same time, Zhou Zhou was a little stunned as he looked at the other party's suddenly expanding and purer line of faith. A smile slowly appeared on his face. He had actually become his Holy Spirit tier believer. It was worth it to give him a Master God tier book of the God Spirit. He recalled what the other party had just said. He stroked his chin and suddenly asked, "True God tier Blazing Sun? Have you completely inherited the path of the Blazing Sun God?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Heros said respectfully. "Blazing Sun's path overlaps with mine extremely much. Furthermore, my nomological path has many flaws. These flaws will prevent me from advancing to a higher level. However, Godlord Blazing Sun's nomological path has almost no flaws. It's a path that can truly unblock Master God tier's nomological path. Therefore, I simply abandoned my nomological path and completely accepted Blazing Sun's nomological path. That's why I successfully became a true God tier." Zhou Zhou acknowledged. He already had the original sin and the demon-hunting true god, Gelt, the heavenly dragon god, Kika, the true god Shenghua, and the Blazing Sun true god, Heros now. This could even surpass the requirements for the Empire to advance to become a true god tier in the Divine Kingdom. He wondered what the Elven Empire, which had put in so much effort and sacrificed so many benefits to seek the protection of the true god tier, would think. You've just become a true god tier, and don't have any true god tier divine artifacts on you yet. Zhou Zhou took out a spatial ring and handed it to the other party. There are 6 true god tier divine artifacts inside. They are all true god tier divine artifacts that are extremely compatible with your Blazing Sun laws. One of them is a reward for advancing to the true god tier. The remaining 5 true god tier divine artifacts are temporarily lent to you. In the future, if you immediately make great contributions, such as killing a true god tier of the same level, you can use military merits to take one away and make it your personal true god tier divine artifacts. As soon as these words were spoken, Bai He and Patriarch Lu could not help but click their tongues. Those were 6 true god tier divine artifacts. Moreover, they were true god tier divine artifacts that were compatible with the laws that the other party cultivated. One could imagine how precious they were. However, Zhou Zhou handed it over to the other party without hesitation. This was really generous. The two of them looked at Zhou Zhou. Now, Zhou Zhou and his Blazing Sun Kingdom had long been exposed to all races. Some matters regarding the Blazing Sun Kingdom had already spread like wildfire. One of the things was, all the officials, soldiers, grassroots subjects, and even former surrendered soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom were extremely difficult to instigate and incite defection. When the common people's regal and the Blazing Sun Kingdom had just started, the myriad races had sent spies, and other secret intelligence personnel to infiltrate the Blazing Sun Kingdom to investigate and gather information. They even wanted to corrupt the Blazing Sun Kingdom from within and cause it to collapse. However, to their disbelief, regardless of how many secret intelligence personnel they had sent out, they immediately lost all news not long after they joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Even if they sent back information, it was only fake information. Some intelligence agents would even pass on fake information, causing them to suffer heavy losses because of fake information. Obviously, their plan to send their clansmen to infiltrate the Blazing Sun Kingdom had failed. Not only did they fail, they had even lost the intelligence personnel they had painstakingly nurtured. After this matter was verified many times and confirmed that the Blazing Sun Kingdom indeed had a mysterious magic that could make the enemy change sides, the myriad races rarely sent intelligence personnel to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Hence, not long after, there were rumors that the Blazing Sun Kingdom had the Lord talent to change the loyalty of the subjects in the territory. Patriarch Lu and the others had naturally heard of this matter and had their own guesses. However, when they saw the scene in front of them, a new idea appeared in their minds. Even if Zhou Zhou doesn't have the Lord talent to change the loyalty of the subjects, with his generosity, it's probably very simple for a subject or even a god spirit to be dead loyal to him, right? The two deities thought to themselves. At the same time, Heros took the spatial ring from Zhou Zhou. When he saw the 6 elementary grade true god-tier divine artifacts inside, he immediately trembled with excitement. With these 6 true god-tier divine artifacts, in addition, he had the master god-tier legacy of Blazing Sun. The current hymn was enough to crush any true god-tier elementary grade enemy without true god-tier divine artifacts. Even if it was a true god-tier intermediate grade enemy, as long as it was not a top-notch true god-tier intermediate grade expert, he had the confidence to win. As for true god-tier advanced grade enemies, Heros was also confident that he could escape safely from them. Giving these 6 true god-tier divine artifacts to he was equivalent to turning a tiger into a winged flying tiger. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was like a tiger with wings. After chatting for a while, Bai asked, Zhou Zhou, the humans of the primordial world have roughly been settled down. We have time now, so Patriarch Lu and I plan to hunt the true god tiers of the people of foreign races. What are your plans? I intend to continue cultivating to increase my strength. Without hesitation, Zhou Zhou voiced his thoughts. His current power was only at the low-tier deity level intermediate grade. Even if he could rely on the Law Skill King to advance to the true god-tier intermediate grade, it would only be in a temporary state. In any case, his 2 clones were already in control outside. Be it government affairs or military affairs, they wouldn't be delayed because he was absent. Therefore, he naturally had to focus on improving his strength. After he finished speaking, he asked, Do you have a target? We plan to go to the territory of the Rakshasa race and kill the true god tier of the Blood Sea, in Luo. This fellow doesn't interact with the other true god tier of the Rakshasa race all year round. However, he participated in the battle to stop the humans from retreating to the primordial world. Therefore, we plan to attack him first. Patriarch Lu said, Are you confident? Zhou Zhou asked. If it was before, we definitely wouldn't be confident. Patriarch Lu and Bai smiled. Then, Bai uttered with a smile, But now, we have a full set of true god-tier divine artifacts that we borrowed from you. We can still offer it a try. Zhou Zhou nodded, then gazed at Heros. Heros, in that case, accompany me. Yes, your majesty. Heros immediately uttered excitedly. He had just grasped the power of a true god tier and was worried that he wouldn't be able to find an enemy to practice the power he had just obtained. This was an opportunity he needed. Thank you for your help. Bai and Patriarch Lu were pleasantly surprised. Even though Heros had just advanced to the true god tier, he walked the laws and was extremely good at combat. Coupled with the support of his true god tier divine artifacts, it was not a problem for him to fight against a true god-tier intermediate grade expert from the people of foreign races. To him, it was naturally a great help. Originally, they only had about 60% confidence in this operation. Now that Heros had joined them, they immediately felt that the success rate of their trip had increased to more than 80%. Same old rules. As long as you can bring the corpse of a true god-tier over, you can receive a true god-tier divine artifact from me or make a true god-tier divine artifact you borrowed your own. Okay. The 3 true god tiers became excited. Then, they did not waste any more time. They borrowed a galaxy from Zhou Zhou and boarded it, flying towards the territory of the Rakshasa race. Zhou Zhou smiled when he saw this. Then, he leisurely returned to the time world and continued to comprehend the Lord's laws. At the same time, in a cold place extremely far away from the Blazing Sun Kingdom. In the war conference room inside the Galaxy Leader, Zhou Fight was looking at the virtual map projected in front of him. At this moment, a general walked in and said happily, Your Majesty, another legendary tier advanced grade forbidden mage, Jiang Quan, has just advanced to a low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirit. Another one? While Zhou Fight was happy, his expression was also a little strange. This is the 8th today, right? He asked. Yes, Your Majesty, the general said respectfully. I understand. Let the newly promoted god spirit wait for the conferment reward tonight. You can leave first. Zhou said. I'll take my leave. The general said respectfully. Then, he brought up the war conference room, leaving Zhou standing there thoughtfully. I didn't expect the effects of the blessing of the war god to be so outstanding after it was upgraded to the mythical tier. In less than a morning, a total of 8 legendary tier advanced grade soldiers advanced to god spirits. If this goes on for an entire day, won't the number of new god spirits break through to 20? Zhou mumbled. It was definitely impossible to do this with Terrence's supreme blessing alone. After all, compared to the legendary tier lord talent, it only increased the additional promotion energy by 1000%. It's probably the war fanatics at work. He can allow the living beings and even god spirits participating in the war to break through the limits of their potential and reach a higher realm of strength amidst the horror of life and death. This is the only reason why we're in such a situation. Among the soldiers under my main body, even with the enhancement of the Sword of Xin Yuan and other potential treasures, there are many soldiers whose potential has not been raised to the god spirit level after all. Zhou thought to himself. Then, a smile appeared on his face. This new mythical tier unique lord talent was really useful. It was not in vain that his main body had spent 1 billion green bronze tier lord talent crystal fragments to upgrade it. In the future, when they left the supreme continent and waited for the master god tier to stand on his side, those people of foreign races would probably be dumbfounded. At the thought of something interesting, Zhou smile widened. Then, he didn't think too much about it. He continued to look at the virtual map in front of him as he drafted today's war plan in his mind. The race they planned to destroy today was called the Moon Demon Race. It was an extremely weak demon race. It was so weak that it did not even have an Empire-level Lord faction. However, although they were extremely weak, their reproductive ability was extremely strong. The total number of their clansmen exceeded 1,500 trillion. And even such a weak race dared to participate in the war to stop the humans from retreating to the primordial world. So much for taking advantage of the situation. Now that Zhou Zhou and company had the time, they could spare some time to deal with them. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sky darkened. In the divine kingdom world, in the time-space. Zhou Zhou slowly opened his eyes, a look of joy on his face. After I obtained the new mythical tier 1 Lord talent, I feel that my aptitude in the Lord's law seems to have become stronger. If I spend another day in the time world tomorrow, I'll definitely be able to advance to the low-tier deity level advance grade. It turned out that increasing the strength of one's talent could also increase the aptitude of one's Lord law. Then, he had to increase his mythical tier 1 and only Lord talent in the future. At this moment, he said to the outside, "Let Bai Yun in." Outside the hall, Aaliyah, who was about to go in and report, was stunned for a moment before retreating obediently. Soon, Bai Yun walked over. "Greetings, Your Majesty," he said respectfully. "How's the battle today?" Zhou Zhou looked at him and asked. Good God. Even from a long distance away, he could sense that the other party had at least 1 billion grudges attached to him. How many people of foreign races had he killed? Your Majesty, everything went well. It's just that the moon demons are a little tough. They only have 2 low-level true god-tier powerhouses. Facing His Majesty's clone as well as Lord Kika, Lord Gerald, and Lord True God Shenghua, they actually don't want to surrender but insist on resisting. Therefore, I can only order the army and the true god tiers to exterminate all the moon demons who are unwilling to surrender. Bai Yun said expressionlessly. Well done. Zhou Zhou gazed at he for a long time before nodding. Your Majesty, this is a summary by Lady Wanya. It's a list of the wars of today. After Bai Yun finished speaking, she controlled her personal terminal. With a tap of her finger, she projected the list of battles in front of Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou looked at it. This morning, Bai Yun and the other soldiers and deity spirits specialized in hunting the eye of the heaven's anger. They hunted a total of 30 god spirits and obtained 1.13 trillion faction points. Along the way, they also killed more than 320 million fog monsters and enemies from the people of foreign races. In the afternoon, he went to the territory of the Moon Demon race. In this short afternoon, he had wiped out more than 1,200 trillion moon demons, more than 11.5 billion moon demon soldiers, 212 ordinary moon demon god spirits, and 2 true god-tier moon demons. The conflict supplies departed behind by these enemies, the racial reserves of the moon demon race, and their combat items were enhanced by the titles of the King of Loots and the Strongest Lord. They obtained a total of more than 830 million legendary tier mist cores, more than 15.412 billion epic tier mist cores, more than 105.096 billion extraordinary tier mist cores, 529.315 billion diamond tier mist cores, 152 billion white platinum tier mist cores, 359 billion yellow gold tier mist cores, 2.5 trillion white silver tier mist cores, 5.6 trillion green bronze tier mist cores, 56.96 million black iron tier mist cores. There were more than 200 billion skill books and 300 billion pieces of equipment. The basic materials were about 100 trillion units. Basic elemental gemstone resources, more than 10 billion 32 million units. More than 250 million units of thunder element gems. 430,000 units of life elemental gems. 520 million units of death elemental gems. More than 1 million units of time elemental gems. More than 2 million units of space elemental gems. 13 billion 88 million origin crystals. 252 000 9630 green bronze tier lord talent crystal fragments. 58,001 holy spirit tier faith holy crystals. More than 510 million units of holy crystals from low tier to high tier deity level. 80 true god tier elementary grade divine crystals. More than 2 million low tier to high tier deity level divine artifacts. 6 true god tier holy artifacts. There was also a total of about 2 million holy spark fragments, god tier medicinal herbs, god tier ingredients, god tier ores, god tier blueprints, and other treasures. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly after reading this part of the summary. Even though the overall gains were far inferior to the gains from the destruction of the Fire Cry race yesterday. However, there were many life elemental gems and death elemental gems. The life elemental gems and death elemental gems are enough. I can upgrade my territory to the legendary tier elementary grade. Zhou Zhou thought. Then, Zhou Zhou looked at the god spirit list and the military strength list. He first looked at the list of god spirits. After today's battle, a total of 25 legendary tier advanced grade soldiers had advanced to low tier deity level elementary grade god spirits. This allowed Zhou Zhou to have 621 god spirits under his command. In terms of insight defection, first of all, Zhou Fight had used the insight defection twice on behalf of him on the battlefield today. Even though it was only against 2 people of foreign races with a body mass of 2 billion, the results of the 2 insight defections had also brought Zhou Zhou 1,617,869,360 billion soldiers of foreign races. As for the Star Alliance Masters, after following the army to participate in the war between the people of foreign races yesterday, they had also instigated Zhou Zhou's insight defection with 2,118,601,780 people of foreign race soldiers. Currently, the total number of soldiers under Zhou Zhou's command was 112,804,281,114 soldiers. Including the Star Alliance's current 24,112,000,000 troops, the total number of troops under Zhou Zhou's command had already reached more than 136 billion soldiers. Zhou Zhou frowned slightly when he saw this. The benefits of insight defection have decreased. It's not as good as the beginning where the prophets have amazed me. Zhou Zhou shook his head. The reason why the benefits of this Lord talent became so small was mainly because his insight defection's target range was limited to a specific Lord's faction. For example, he wanted to fight with a certain Lord faction, and this Lord faction had 5 Lord factions under its command. Then, when he used insight defection, he could only use incite defection on one of the other party's lord factions, not on the entire alliance of lord factions. This greatly affected the benefits of this lord talent. Zhou Zhou had originally planned to use the 1 billion green bronze tier lord talent crystal fragments he had accumulated to increase his lord talent, but now that he saw the benefits, he hesitated. This benefit didn't seem worth it. However, after some thought, he decided to upgrade it. Firstly, this lord talent had been with him for a long time, and he had used it the most. Even if the effect of incite defection had weakened now, the internal strife effect produced in the war was still very good. Moreover, he wanted to continue upgrading it. Secondly, generally speaking, when a lord talent reached the mythical tier level, there would usually be a qualitative change. After the incite defection underwent a qualitative change, it might make up for these shortcomings. Thirdly, Zhou Zhou had a feeling. This mythical tier incite defection, the only lord talent, would be very important to his future. This feeling was very unreasonable. However, when it came to experts like Zhou Zhou who could sense fate, he began to value this premonition that was similar to a sudden inspiration. Therefore, he chose to continue upgrading the lord talent, incite defection. As for the shocking number of newly advanced god spirits, even though this was somewhat beyond Zhou Zhou's expectations, he felt that it was reasonable when he thought about the effect of the newly advanced mythical tier unique lord talent. Then, he looked at the list of troops. Even though many of the moon demons were very stubborn and were unwilling to accept the blazing sun kingdom's persuasion to surrender, and they were not successfully instigated by the incite defection, a small portion of the moon demons joined the blazing sun kingdom before and after the war because they were afraid of the blazing sun kingdom's powerful strength. These moon demons were divided into two portions. A portion of them were naturally ordinary moon demons without extraordinary tier powers. There were about 300 trillion of them, and they were temporarily arranged in the original territory of the moon demons. They were not allowed to migrate, and they were treated the same as the Fire Cry race. Another group was the moon demons' military professionals. There were about 2.5 billion of them. When Zhou Zhou saw this number, he couldn't be bothered to ask them to bring it back. He asked them to stay where they were to protect the moon demon territory. And that alone naturally wasn't enough to completely rule the moon fiend territory. Zhang Yuanqi had already discussed with the other officials to send a large number of officials and soldiers to guard the Fire Cry human race's territory and the moon demon race's territory. Then, they would manage the territories of the people of foreign races according to the situation. For example, tailor-made governance policies. It would increase the relationship between the Fire Criers, the moon demons, and the humans. Coupled with Zhou Zhou's unquestionable prestige and strength, as well as his good policy towards the subjects in the country, all the races like to live a good life. At that time, even if other people of foreign races said that the Fire Cry human race and the moon demon race should sentence the Blazing Sun Kingdom to fight against the common people's regal and the Blazing Sun Kingdom with them, they would retaliate without hesitation and would think that the other party had ulterior motives. Of course, there was also the use of the Lord talent, peaceful times. Speaking of which, currently, Zhou Zhou had a total of 112,842,811,114 troops under his command, excluding the Star Alliance. Among them, there were 1,279,699,252 Black Iron Tier soldiers, 5,780,129,593 Green Bronze Tier soldiers, 21,393,452,845 White Silver Tier soldiers, 47,231,029,800 Yellow Gold Tier soldiers, 10,763,159,862 White Platinum Tier soldiers, 8,696,058,770 Diamond Tier soldiers, 6,610,698,780 Extraordinary Tier soldiers, 2,517,893,900 Epic Tier soldiers, 10,259,650 Legendary Tier soldiers, As for the god spirits under him, their strength had increased to varying degrees after today's battle. Among them, Guo Qiao, Qi Xintian, Yuan Song, and Zhe Wu had advanced to high-tier deity level advanced grade, and had already reached the threshold of true god tier. Vicky, Bai Yun, Wu Xian, Feng Luo, Suin, and Luo Sheng had all advanced to the high-tier deity level elementary grade. Nazario and Ji Long had become mid-tier deity level elementary grades. Light Sacred Dragon, Ingersoll had been promoted to a low-tier deity level elementary grade deity and was suspected to have combat power close to that of a true god. He could hold on for a period of time in a fight with a true god tier. Even though he would be at a disadvantage, he would not be in danger of losing his life. The strength of the other god spirits had also increased greatly. When Zhou Zhou saw the god's advancement, his face immediately revealed joy. While he had already expected that the god spirits under him might receive a huge enlarge in their strength because of the mythical, only Lord talent of the 10 sacred blessings, the protection of the war master god, Terence. He didn't expect the increase to be so great. There were actually quite a quantity of god spirits who had already reached the threshold of advancing to true god tier, which meant, as long as they fulfilled the nomological requirements to advance to true god tier, they could successfully advance to true god tier. What satisfied Zhou Zhou the most was that the light sacred dragon, Ingersoll, had finally advanced to the deity level. His talent did not disappoint Zhou Zhou. As soon as he elevated to the low-tier deity level elementary grade, he had the power to fight a true god tier. Even though he could not win the battle, he could barely protect himself in the battle. However, this was also an extremely shocking achievement. He could be considered to have some of the elegance of a master like him, as expected of a legendary dragon. Well done. We'll continue tomorrow. Zhou Zhou smiled at Bai Yun after reading the war report. Yes, Your Majesty. A look of joy appeared on Bai Yun's face, and she replied even more firmly before she took her leave. After Bai Yun left, Zhou Zhou was not in a hurry to upgrade his territory or lord talent. Instead, he opened the faction points ranking. First place, Human, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 5,359,000,000 faction points. Second place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 4,215,000,000 faction points. Third place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 3,992,000,000 faction points. Fourth place, Myriad Spirit Race, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 3,089,000,000 faction points. Fourth place, Chaos Gods Race, Great One Lord, 3.321 billion faction points. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. Finally, there's a gap of 1 billion faction points. However, it's still not enough to reach my 10 billion faction points. Looks like I have to continue to work harder from tomorrow onwards. He thought to himself. Thankfully, he didn't have much else here. The Eye of the Heavens anger had enough targets. I wonder what will happen if I kill all the targets of the Eye of the Heavens anger? This thought suddenly appeared in Zhou Zhou's mind. Actually, the illusory life race had already given this answer. The event ended early, and the event prize fell into the hands of the illusory life race without any suspense. Even though the illusory life race suffered because of this, it had nothing to do with Zhou Zhou. As the Lord of all races, Zhou Zhou had the protection of the Supreme Agreement. Before leaving the High Continent, he was basically not afraid of the experts of all races coveting the treasures he had. Then perhaps I can give it a try myself. After killing all the targets of the Eye of the Heavens anger, I can end this event early. Zhou Zhou's heart pounded at the thought of this. If that was the case, then the final reward for this event was almost guaranteed to go to him. However, he then pondered of a new problem. To him, and the territory forces who were developing extremely quickly, every day of development was enough to cause changes in his territory. If he ended his current activities early, wouldn't it be equivalent to shortening his development time and entering the era of 10,000 worlds in advance? This was actually not very beneficial to him. At most, he would get the event's final reward in advance. However, to the Lord of all races who came from top-notch bloodlines, It could allow them to obtain the help of the races behind them in advance. Now that I think about it, if I really speed up the end of the activity, it seems like I'm doing the enemy a favor. Zhou Zhou muttered in his heart. Never mind. Let's do it step by step. He would kill as many as he could. He had to eat his fill first. Then, he stopped thinking about it. Instead, he took out 1 billion green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into a mythical tier Lord Talent origin divine crystals. Then, he silently used them in his mind. A text notification appeared. As you have 3 legendary tier Lord Talents, Insight Defection, Master Thief's Robbery Gloves, and Super Construction Engineering 9, please choose one to advance. After reading it, he did not hesitate and directly chose to upgrade the Lord Talent, Insight Defection. The Lord Talent, Master Thief's Robbery Gloves, was completely enough at this stage for him. As for Super Construction Engineering 9, there was a need to upgrade it as his territory expanded. In the future, if he had excess Lord Talent crystal fragments, he could upgrade it to the mythical tier. Unique level. But now, it was better to choose Insight Defection. Lord Talent has been chosen. Upgrading in progress. The next second, he felt an extremely strong warm feeling appear between his eyebrows again. Zhou Zhou was still looking forward to it even though he had experienced it before. After a long time, the warmth faded. A new text notification appeared. Lord Talent upgrade successful. Congratulations, your legendary tier Lord Talent, Insight Defection, has been upgraded to mythical tier. Your only Lord Talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. You have leveled up to mythical tier. The only Lord Talent effect is as follows. 10,000 Spirit Saint. Specific Talent Effect 1. You are a sage in the eyes of all living beings. The moment all living beings see you, they will yearn to become your followers. There is a high chance that they will join your camp and submit to you. Specific Talent Effect 2. When you combat head-on with the enemy's Lord faction, as long as there is no absolutely irresistible difference in strength, you can trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saint talent and incite 50% of the enemies in the enemy's Lord faction to become your loyal subordinates. Moreover, among the enemies who were incited by Insight Defection, there would be a spellcaster who grasped Insight Surrender 100%. Send this spellcaster into the enemy camp for Insight Surrender. There is a 10% chance that all the members of the enemy Lord's camp will be Insight Surrendered as your loyal subordinates. Lord Talent Notification 1. The minimum number of enemies for Insight Defection is 1 unit, and the maximum number is unlimited. Lord Talent Notification 2. You can trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord Talent on any enemy faction. Lord Talent Notification 3. This talent can only be activated once a day. Lord Talent Notification 4. Enemies affected by the 10,000 Spirit Saint have a minimum basic loyalty of 90 points. Lord Talent Notification 5. This talent cannot be used twice against the same enemy Lord faction. Lord Talent Notification 6. The target of this talent will no longer be limited to a single Arma level faction or a single Lord level faction. Instead, it will treat all the enemies you are enemies with as one. From there, the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord talent will be activated. Is this the mythical tier, the only Lord talent, the 10,000 Spirit Saint? After Zhou Zhou saw the specific effect of this Lord talent, his eyes immediately lit up. His gaze landed on the last Lord talent notification. The enemies against me are no longer limited to a single Arma level faction or a single Lord level faction. Instead, they will treat all the enemies against me as a single entity and trigger the 10,000 Spirit Saints Lord talent on the whole. After reading it, Zhou Zhou immediately chuckled heartily. It was not in vain that he had made such a huge decision. He had spent 1 billion green bronze tier Lord talent crystal fragments to raise Insight Defection to the mythical tier's only level. It had really removed the biggest drawback of the Insight Defection. From then on, in the future, he would no longer have to worry. In the face of an enemy army of 10 billion, something as embarrassing as Insight Defection only resulting in an army of billions or even hundreds of millions had happened. He could directly instigate Insight Defection on the 10 billion strong army as a whole. He could directly possess half of his military strength. Furthermore, the limitless effects of his insight defection were enough to satisfy him. Wait, does that mean I can attack Uriel now? Zhou Zhou pondered of this question and began to think seriously.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.